Now, Luke, this morning we're going to be getting into some really interesting discussion. But with this Beneath the Surface series, we have been able to get beneath what lies on the surface of what we see. We see policies being executed. We hear the feedback from all sectors of the society. Some persons in agreement, some persons not. But we oftentimes don't really get to hear some of the ideas behind the policies and what really caused these our representatives to go in this direction or another, and whether or not it does align with the agenda that they came into office with, and if they are fulfilling that agenda.
Okay. And Chanel, what I like about this series is that as the public, we sit down, we just see the execution, we just see the how, we just see why we are doing these things in Tobago. But it's always good to hear it from the actual politician, the person who is leading, to find out what was the inspiration behind that, what strike your interest. And most importantly, what I always love to find out is what would have motivated them to get into politics in the first place. And I love when we ask the question and we're hearing about their childhood, how they grew up, their community involvement. And when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, everything just makes sense. And I think that this series, Shenell, it's really healthy, because we oftentimes just view politicians as these invincible beings who must have everything nice. But at the end of the day, they are human beings. They probably have a little more responsibility than others, but they are human beings with real lives, real emotions, and real feelings. So it's always good to go beneath the surface of the glamorous side of the politics.
Excellent. And with that being said, viewers, this morning we have the privilege to sit here on the Scarborough Esplanade in front of the Isle of Tobago sign with Assemblyman Sonny Craig. And he is also the Assistant Secretary in the Office of the Chief Secretary with responsibility for the environment, climate change, and energy. And we also heard the Chief Secretary talking a bit about that carbon sequestration when you entered into office. So this morning, tell the people a bit about what you are doing there as Assistant Secretary in the Office of the Chief Secretary.
Okay, a pleasant good morning to Tobago, Trinidad, the world. Good morning, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I think this is such a comforting space. Well, I'm really enjoying sitting here with you.
Well, this comfort has been brought to you by Courts Store. So we want to thank Courts this morning for our comfort here on the Scarborough Esplanade.
Big up, Courts. So, the Chief Secretary, when he did his realignment, he placed me in that position. That was in May 2024, to look at this whole conversation about the environment, climate change, energy. And when you say energy, we're considering alternative energy. And it has been a building experience for me, because a learning experience. Pulling this new department together is not an easy feat. I would admit that we are not where we want to be as yet. However, I am blessed with a team of professionals. I'm led by Mr. Linford Beckles. He might be known, I don't know if you know him, but he's well known in the Tobago space. He's one that stands in the gap when our groups go to meet parliamentary committees and so on to answer questions on behalf of Tobago. He's a specialist in the environment. I also have Miss Melanie Trim. She's a specialist in energy and all different types of alternative energy. And it's amazing to work with these young people and to see we have such an impressive cadre of persons in Tobago to lead this charge. We also have Mr. Robbins. Mr. Robbins' specialty is in coastal, climate change and coastal engineering and so on. So the island of Tobago is not immune from what the world is speaking about with regards to these topics, Even if we do not have factories and mass industrialization on the island, there's no part of the world that escapes what happens to the environment when we are irresponsible. The larger countries that do most of the industrialization, the effects will be felt: global warming, erosion of the ozone layer. It doesn't happen only in one space. So Tobago needs to be conscious. Tobago needs to do their part. And so when we look at the island, our the greatest negativity will come from maybe the personal responsibility of the citizen. Persons on this island need to really get into this conversation, and it's my hope that during this year I'll be able to open up the conversation As a matter of fact, today we are doing a promotional tape for the department, and we'll be beginning at Speyside, where parts of the school are run by alternative energy, and Miss Trim would be there to do her part of that production. In Tobago, as I sit here, you know, we have the cars moving up and down right in front of us here, and we know the exhaust presents an environmental challenge. If you're old enough, you remember that there was a time when between our villages at twilight, candle flies, we call them. The modern people call them fireflies. We used to call them candle flies. Littered our communities. It was such a beautiful thing at twilight, at the setting of sun. These have long gone, and I recently had reason to be in a space in a country area, and I saw candle flies proliferate the air at twilight, and I said, look at that. And in our development, we need to be mindful of every element of the environment. One analogy that came to mind was recently when I heard that there were jellyfish at Pigeon Point. And when you do the research, you realize that turtles have jellyfish as a delicacy. Mm-hmm. And with that, it made me conscious that also plastic bags could be mistaken for jellyfish in the sea. And so if a turtle eats a plastic bag, they become very sick or they could die. So if we are littering our water courses, if the runoff is taking plastic bags into the ocean, turtles are eating them. It doesn't surprise me that jellyfish are becoming more emboldened and coming to our beautiful beaches like Pigeon Point. So it touches a cycle. And a phrase we coined says it like this: protect your environment, protect yourself. Preserve your environment, preserve yourself. So there are many different levels of responsibility in the Tobago space that we need to look at and be able to make the adjustments. If you're old enough also, you'll know there was a time when Tobago was revered as such a clean space. Actually, not so long ago, I got that commendation from some foreign journalists visiting our landfill, and they said they were amazed at how the streets were clean and well kept. Now, sometimes we are not satisfied, because sometimes you're traveling, you might see a box from some chicken and fries on the roadway. You might see bags of garbage strewn somewhere where it shouldn't be. You might even see a refrigerator or a stove. And I'm not talking during the white waste cleanup. I'm talking just off the cuff. Sometimes you just meet a washing machine or a toilet set on the side of the road. And these constitute the kind of irresponsible behavior I'm speaking about. The mosquitoes, the AG aegypti, they love that opportunity to nest. And here we have diseases just coming onto our society just by how we treat our space as a people. So the environmental concern is not necessarily all about factory smoke and industrialization. It has a lot to do with how we treat our space. I am even trying to push this thing as far as your individual self, how you take care of yourself, how you manage your bedroom, how you manage your home, how you manage your street and your community. And this all adds up, because that sense of pride in the island will instruct how we develop the island. In building the greatest little island, it doesn't mean we have to copy everything, but it means that we could be selective and efficient in how we develop the island, yeah?
And, you know, Mr. Craig, it's so ironic that this morning we have such a rainy weather, because I remember probably was last year or year before when we crossed paths, I was interviewing you at the legislature and you left us with a really catchy phrase, have a sunny day.
Yes.
But the fluctuations we are seeing in weather, in terms of one day you might wake up in the morning, it's sunny, the next 5 minutes rain just come out of nowhere.
Right.
All these factors contribute to climate change. Now, we know that the island of Tobago is the smaller of the two in terms of Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah. And from the oil spill, we would have seen how vulnerable we are, how important our ecosystem is. And most importantly, from the perspective of small island developing states, we contribute the least amount of these carbon emissions, yet we always face the brunt, the full force.
Right.
So I want you to walk us through some of the strategies your division has implemented to really tackle climate change from a Tobago perspective.
All right. Well, as you mentioned, the oil spill, it was one of those areas where we were really tested. Yeah? Climate change climate change is a large picture. It's a very large picture. And as I said earlier, as an island, we just need to get on board with the conversation and to look for our space. I'm looking at, when I was a child, I remember, and I wouldn't go that far back, but there was a time when Corpus Christi, rain fell, you could go out and plant the next day. There was a guarantee somehow that this was the beginning of the rainy season. I witnessed people do it in the last 10, 15 years, and after Corpus Christi rain, it's almost like if we went back to a dry season, and those plants were burnt up in the ground. As an island, I will not try to attribute any of the major factors as we contributing to those major factors. But as I said earlier, we cannot escape the ravages of it. If you look at islands like in the South Pacific, there are low-lying islands that are just disappearing because of the global warming effect and the melting of the ice shield. And we see tides rising in certain areas. In my lifetime, I've been able to see coastal changes in Tobago. There is a sandbar at Pigeon Point where people gather for dragon boat racing finals, and they have big parties there. Like I can't remember the name of the parties, but they have massive parties on this massive sandbar. And as a child, that was not there. And you look at the sandbar, you look at the curtain of trees surrounding the sandbar. Those trees represent where the shoreline was at one point. And so that could also come because the reef, the bleaching is happening in the reef. The bleaching is because of the penetration of the sunlight versus the depth of the water. The corals are suffering the ravages of that. So you'll realize that we are getting the effects, but it's not necessarily because of something we do directly as an island.
Correct.
And that bleaching and the death of corals would create a kind of graveyard effect, because a lot of our beaches on the borders of reef systems are really constituted of dead coral. So if you take a handful of sand at Pigeon Point, especially on the side, no, the whole of Pigeon Point is surrounded by a reef, right? The Buku Reef comes right in, and if you take up a handful of sand, you'll realize that it's not necessarily sand per se, it's really chips of coral.
So that's what we see that at the nylon pool when we pick up?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
okay, great.
yes.
Okay, and as Luke would have asked, what is your department doing to combat climate change in Tobago?
We have the professionals on board. We're having the conversation recently. A team came from Trinidad, and we had a meeting at Buku Point, Buku Multipurpose Facility, where we were looking at it and looking at what could be done. Now, if a decay or erosion is happening as a consequence of a global warming effect, you would appreciate that we as an island cannot necessarily stop global warming. But education is one of our greatest tools. Yeah, once the people could get to understand, and one of the things we have to do in this year is to seek to educate the Tobago public as to what these things constitute. I remember as a child also, I don't know, I have to do a lot of historical perspective.
It's okay.
Because that is the only way I could make the comparison to what's happening now. Right? I remember as a child when I used to go to the reef from Buku, and the amount of corals I saw. Step forward 20 years or so, and I went back, and I was disappointed as to the amount of corals, because in those early years, we didn't understand the value of the corals to the ecosystem, because people used to bring out large bundles of corals. We used to bleach them pure white and have them on display in our living areas. But that has stopped, because as persons in the Buku area and in those villages surrounding the reef discovered the importance of the reef, that has been stymied. You know, if you go to the reef there's a reef on the edge of the runway in Canaan, where we call Kilgwin. It's really Friendship Bay. And that beach throws up massive sea fans every now and then. So there's a natural evolution of reefs. We just have to know how it happens and marry our behavior with the natural phenomenon so that we could create the sustenance we need as time goes by.
Right. There were people when this shift was made, when the reshuffle was made, who said that you were just placed in any position, meaningless, with nothing to do really, but basically put on a shelf.
Yeah.
How do you respond to those persons now with all the work that you have been doing in that area? And what would you say are some of the hallmarks to this shift for you?
Well, a lot of people talk, and I don't really always listen to much talk. I heard it. I heard him, a good friend. I heard him say it, and he was not conscious, I imagine, of where we are as an island or as a region in relation to the larger topic. And maybe he couldn't see room for a conversation or room for a department in that. And that's his personal position. The chief secretary, I trust his wisdom more than that particular person or those persons. And if he thought that I could make a difference there, I'm going to make the difference there. Yeah. The promotional video we're doing at the moment is one where Tobagonians would be sensitized as to what we're doing. One of the things we're touching to, as we're saying environment, we also looking at partnering with the Division of Health in putting some real action behind some of our negative practices. Like, okay, I have a car that I loved, and maybe I went on my first date with it, but it's no longer working. It's now a derelict, and it's just parked on the side of the road. It's cheating somebody of that space that we could get to use our roadways efficiently. So we want to advise the public that we'll be on a move to remove them. We have begun already. We've moved some, but the relic cars would be moved. We have earmarked a space to store them temporarily. So if you want to get back your derelict car, or if you didn't move it before we moved it, you still have a little chance to get it back. But these things add up to what I would say is something contrary to the real vision we have for the island. The island, there's no real rocket science in having our spaces clean and eliminating the use of certain harmful substances in our communities. We are also on another program where we want to eliminate the use of plastic bags. I was amazed when I went to Grenada 2 years ago, and I got to the supermarket, and when I got to the cashier, she said, "Do you have a bag?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, this is 1975. Mommy used to give me a bag and my grocery list to go in the shop. Do you have a?" I said, "No." The lady pulled a bag from below the counter, and she swiped it on a checker, and she charged me an extra $1. And this was a biodegradable bag. And I realized that in those islands, I saw it also in St. Lucia last year, they have eliminated the use of plastic bags. This is a change that will come to Tobago. Changes always create some discomfort, but most times this discomfort are really in your mind. It's really up here. But if you look at it carefully and you love your environment and you want to preserve your environment, because the burning of plastics is one of the things that we do that add to the depletion of the ozone layer, right? The gases emitted from burning plastic does that to our environment. So we have an opportunity to actually make an actual dent. Plastics, they do not decay. If you go to the landfill, I'll be in the landfill today, and you see the quantum of plastic bags. You see them you can't miss them. They dominated the space. And we are on a drive to supply the island with bags. The initial supply of bags would be free to the Tobagonian, right? And not Tobagonian, the people living on the island, sorry. It will be free to them. And as we develop the practice, persons would be encouraged to keep that bag with them. Put it in your glove compartment. You're going down the road and you got the call to bring home 2 pack of flying fish and a pound of flour. You just pull it back from the glove compartment and you go into the supermarket and you purchase. Or the supermarket might be able to sell you a biodegradable bag.
Okay. And this is in partnership with which organization?
Well, it came to us in conversation from the chamber, right? And because the chamber, along with the chamber, we have most of the mass retailers in the country are a part of that movement. So this is something that would be coming on board, and it will present a lot of opportunities in the long term for the manufacture and the proliferation of the bag program.
And what about that recycling / eco organization down there at Shore Park?
Yeah.
Is that a part of the strategy that you have been utilizing? Are you utilizing their service? Because they have already been doing a lot of work where climate change and the environment is concerned, how are you incorporating these private sector entities into the work that you're doing?
No attempt to work with the THA towards this success would be looked on lightly, right? So we are definitely going to be encouraging public-private partnerships as we seek to eliminate use of plastic bags. We know that plastic bottles are on our next. That's our next big filler in the landfill. Plastic bottles. So we want to also tackle that. There's a lot of technology and a lot of science, a lot of research. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We see if we go online, we could see what is happening with tires, used car tires, used truck and backhoe tires. Tires of all types are being collected and recycled. Some being used back in the pitching of roads, the production of roads, some on Mondo tracks. And the list is a very long list of what you could do with recycled stuff. There are persons overseas presently presenting options for us to consider. And of course, we'll have to look at them. They must come in tandem with the THA's policy and the legal framework under which the THA functions. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick break right here, and we'll be back right after this. See you soon.
Behind Beneath the Surface actually series. Now, viewers, it's a very rainy day, so I hope you all are being safe on the roads. But as we continue this morning's conversation, Mr. Craig, take us back to December 6, 2021. I remember the results coming out for your district, especially. It was a very tight margin. Mr. Dennis, 920, you 924. How did you feel initially when you got those results coming in?
I felt humbled. It was such a message that you are not here on your own.
Correct.
I felt it was divine. Like Mr. Dennis, of course, he asked for a recount, and after 2 recounts, we moved from a 2 margin to 4. Yeah, I felt humbled. I realized at that point, early in this journey, that this is not a journey about me. It's a journey about my community. It's a journey about developing the people of Tobago. And I had to keep my journey as pure as I could. That's only divine, because as much as we could try to be as good as we want, you need to keep praying, you need to keep focused and depend on something bigger than yourself. Because I'm saying to him, after I saw the results, I realized this is not about me. It's about calling on my life to do this. Yeah. So and the 3 years has been very interesting.
So talk to me about that, Mr. Craig. So you were selected to be the area representative. So walk us through what were your initial plans and goals for the area, and were you able to execute some of those plans?
When you're outside looking in, you could make a lot of plans. When you get in, sometimes you have to do a reassessment of those plans. So I looked at the community. There are some strengths. The communities come with their strengths.
Such as?
Bukuman Peasant is the only district that has the goat race festival in a major way. As the villages are quoted on the ballot sheet, Bukuman Peasant, those are the 2 villages. Buku has the bigger of the 2 goat races and the older of the 2 goat races. So in my estimation, I saw room for a strong agricultural base in Bukuman Peasant that focuses on the development of the different breed of goats and so on. It will just marry nicely into the whole goat race concept. It's not an idea that I've thrown away, but I've not been able to activate it as yet, right? Because in the community of Bukuman Peasant, and of course it envelops Canaan all the way down to Penny Savers. So once you know Penny Savers Supermarket, and that's road they call Center Street, that's the boundary line between myself and Joel Sampson. So, and it goes right back up to Chevy Tire Shop in Lowlands area there, what you call Hampden. So, most of the terrain of my district is flat, basically flat terrain, perfect for so many different options. We also have the Buku Reef as a part of it. The Great No Man's Land is part of it. And we go down to as far as Grange Bay. Grange Bay is one of Tobago's best beaches, which people listen to rumors and they do not try Grange Bay, but Grange Bay is one of the top 3 beaches in Tobago. Buku is one of the top 3 also. I won't tell you which is the next one. Let the rest of the island fight for that. So I looked at all these strengths in the district, and I thought to myself, like, Buku Beach is trending. Buku Beach is the beach that a lot of people spend their Sundays. Families come down there and they drive in under the trees and they park, they pull out their picnic stuff and they have a sea bath and they have meals and so on. There's need for some development in those areas. But one of the greatest challenges in accomplishing what we want to accomplish on the island is funding. Funding coming to the island must be prioritized. Yeah? And there are day-to-day, the cost of day-to-day survival on the island, recurrent expenditure is in the billions. And of course, development funding is less than 300 million. And looking at what the island needs, we cannot move apace as we would like. And we just have to be able to steer and turn this funding as we see fit, as we see the needs of the island.
What about what your community needs, Mr. Craig?
The greatest need in my community, now infrastructure development is needed all around the island. But I think people development. People development. When we coin the phrase greatest little island on the planet, people will see it in many different ways. Some people will see it as the greatest architecture of all the small islands, the greatest road network of all the islands. But you put the greatest infrastructure and everything in the hands of people who do not understand their value and who do not work to preserving them, the greatness would just be a show. Because in the political space, you'll find persons previously spoke about how many the PNM, how many multi-purpose facilities they built, how many of this, how many of that, and the development of people. So in my journey in the last 3 years, jobs are the biggest cry.
Okay.
Jobs. People need jobs. And how that is interpreted is a very touchy subject, yeah? Because persons with qualifications are settling for menial jobs. And in the true sense of the word, there is no menial job. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Every job is necessary. I mean, we don't need the drug pushers and those
Correct,
if that was to be called a job. But we need the maintenance people who keep our streets clean, who keep the brush under control and so on. Right? We need to strike a balance between how many people make that their objective versus those who could do better.
Correct.
Those who could do better. And I am not going to at any point undervalue the intelligence quotient of the Tobagonian. Because I think if out of our first 7 presidents we could produce one, when we have really 5% of the population and we could produce a president, if out of the first 7 prime ministers we could produce 2, it speaks to something special about Tobago. So I'm thinking that a lot of Tobagonians could be cutting themselves short in their life dream and their aspirations of what they would like to be. So people come to me many times and they ask for a job.
Okay.
And my next question would be, not that I could give them a job, but I would ask them, as a responsible area rep, what are your qualifications? And in many cases, in few cases, you will get a bachelor's or a master's, but mostly persons are not so qualified to take advantage of some of the offerings, and they would settle for whatever they could get. So I'm thinking that out of the island, we need to look in a direction where we could encourage our youth to aspire. Because some would tell me, I would ask them, what did you want to be when you were a child? When you were in preschool, primary school, coming up, Of course, a lot of the young men want to be pilots. A lot of the young women want to be pediatricians. We have a lot of doctors, aspiring doctors. Some even said, I wanted to do business, you know? And the choices are so many as children. But as they get older and they meet the ravages of life, they might have made a few bad turns along the way. They just abolish these dreams and they settle for whatever could give them a food, give them
And you
some.
know, Mr. Craig,
Yeah.
to wrap up this conversation, I just want you to tell us quickly, in terms of you being the area representative, we recognize that Buku Mount Pleasant is home to one of Tobago's cultural calling cards. So you highlight the Goat Race Festival and those lovely events you see during Easter. Can we see, as area representative, probably in the year 2025, or if it is the Tobagonians give you an option for renewal another 4 years, can we see you as area representative finding ways to merge that cultural aspect of your area and the need for jobs? Like you touched on, you want to touch on the different species of goats. Can we see jobs being created that are unique to the cultural aspect of Buku Mount Pleasant?
Definitely. And that's how it goes, and it works in tandem, because you have development, but your development must also be partnered with the development of your people. And I think I might have been taking a long time to get to that. And I appreciate that you took me there quickly.
No problem.
So you're looking at developing your island or your communities, and you're looking at having your young people or whoever is so willing trained to embrace this. For example, in larger countries, you would find that there's a plan to bring, like, we want to build the city of Scarborough. Therefore, right now, our Secretary for Education, Ms. Zorisha Hackett, is looking at restoring the trade schools. Because you building a city of Scarborough, there would be such a great demand for masons and carpenters. And once we get off that albatross around our neck that is denying us our funding, and we get this development program going, you would be surprised to see that as the young people are trained, I keep saying young, but you'll appreciate that building a great island would need that energy that youth bring to the table. I'm not eliminating the older, but we could have these training programs going. We have our trade schools being reactivated, and we have MEC at Canaan. We have these options. So I try to steer my young people in my district to taking advantage of the opportunities. So as the island grows, as my district grows, I am encouraging them in agriculture, because if we are to develop the goat program, we would need them. So that they work in tandem.
Excellent, Mr. Craig. So we're going to take a quick break. Viewers, stick with us. Please stick with us. The conversation is very healthy, as you can see. And this is Beneath the Surface, brought to you none by Tobago Updates. So remember to share the live, and we'll be right back.
Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates, guys. We are joining you live from the Scarborough Esplanade, right at Milford Road, Scarborough. Now, this morning our set has been sponsored to you by Courts, and we are here having a really interesting conversation while sitting in style and relaxing, courtesy Courts, and their stores are located at the ground floor of the Port Mall, as well as the Lowlands, Gulf City Mall, Lowlands. Sorry. Now we continue our conversation with Assemblyman Sonny Craig. We continue talking about what has been happening in your district. Since you have become the area representative for the area Buku Mount Pleasant, what have you implemented that wasn't there before that has really changed the trajectory of your district?
All right. Right. Buku Mount Pleasant has
It's okay.
had basically strong infrastructure when we began. We had the goat race facility. We have basic. What I try to bring to the area, like for one, in 2023, we had the first Tobago Swim Fest. Tobago Swim Fest was an open water swimming competition that took the swimmers from Pigeon Point all the way to Buku Point, a 4-kilometer swim. And I thought that one of the strengths of Tobago is that we have a very strong sea culture. And that strong sea culture lends itself to competitive banter between young men and young women as to which village has the swimming supremacy. And so that's one new idea I brought to the community, right? As in most cases, as a new option, it is to be built. We had to continue building on it. We had I think it was a very attractive price for a first event, a $10,000 first prize, 10,000, 7,000, 5,000 first, second, and third, and which was run by Mr. Dante Williams, right? So we are hoping to bring it off again in 2025, make it a biannual event because we want to make it international. Actually, you cannot have the best quality seawater in the region and not maximize its use. So then we are still pursuing doing another swim fest in 2025. There are other options coming on board as I spoke in the field of agriculture. This is awaiting the clearances from land management. There is also the reality of the lands that are part of my district are also the lands that were earmarked for the Sanders Hotel, Sanders Beach Resort. These are the same properties we had in mind for agricultural projects. So we're trying to clear the air on that to ensure, should we put any development into these spaces, we would not meet any legal challenges or anything like that as we go along, right? We are also pursuing the development, and I'm also pulling together a list of young entrepreneurs who are interested in doing business. They come to me and they have great plans, but as a former business person, I know that they are not necessarily abreast of everything they need to be abreast of in becoming entrepreneurs. So we are working with them as a district, as my district office, we are working with them. We are also on the verge of holding a meeting with the Secretary of Finance to have conversations with them as to what the real essence of doing business is about. There are a lot of people who do business in Tobago and they do not necessarily enjoy the sweetness of the business because they go in, is it ill-advised or without advice? There are simple state regulations that, if not met, impact your business negatively. From the registration of your business, whether or not you are registered, whether or not you are meeting BIR, Board of Inland Revenue requirements, and other state requirements. So there's that training coming on board in the first quarter for persons who are interested in doing business, and we are going to help them and walk them through the process. Those are just basically three of the
And what
ideas.
do you say to the young persons within your district? I mean, you had a swimming competition, but what do you say to the people in your district who are saying, well, you are out of touch with what the youths really want and you have not done anything that truly appeals to them or engage young people in a way that brings about fundamental change for persons in the Buku Mount Pleasant area, specifically the Mount Pleasant area, where you have a lot of at-risk youth in the community. What would you say to those persons? And you have one more year in office. What do you think you can do with that time left to engage those people?
The conversation continues because I have these conversations with the young people, and some young people they don't have a long list of requirements. I will meet the guys on the block and we'll have conversations, and I try to steer them in a direction, but their list is not hard to meet. Sometimes it might not be sustainable, and sometimes it might not necessarily add up to. I'm not saying that they don't know what's best for themselves, but my experience would tell me how I could advise.
Right. And
So
what
like,
are they really asking for?
but sometimes it's just, they just want a morning walk. And I would add to that statement, would you like to go on a cruise one of these days? Would you like to build a home for your family? Something that you will be really proud of. And I wouldn't tell them the morning walk is not a good idea, but they'll have to understand that that would not allow them the financial latitude they would like to have, because they would like to have the financial latitude, but there's a lot more that they could accomplish. And in conversation, you realize that these are very intelligent people. Like in Boko Point, for example, no, in Mount Pleasant, I know there's a strong love for football, and their grounds are basically up and running. I have a meeting with the team manager today to discuss, because the Mount Pleasant team has moved up to I think it's tier 2 in the football, and they are looking for some assistance in being able to succeed there. So the conversation is always on. I listen to you, I hear what you're asking for, and if it's sponsorship you need, I might be able to have a conversation with some of the businesses in the community to help to meet you there. The Boko playground had suffered tremendously during COVID. There were animals, large animals, horses there, which dented the ground tremendously. We invested, I made my donations, and we got the ground. It's back up. I think it was cut again yesterday. The primary school asked for the ground because they want to compete in all the disciplines this year. We got it cut for them, and so they are stepping out to train. They're supposed to train today. I hope the rain allows them the time and space to train. So as the requests come for the assistance, I try my best to meet them. I met a young man recently on the street. I saw him walking with a big bale of toilet paper. I pulled over because I have a pickup. I could afford to take him, give him a ride, and he said, I'm not getting help. And I said, here I am. How could I help you? He said, you know, food, you know this, you know that. I said, and nobody helping me. I said, listen, my office is open. You know where my office is. You have my phone number. You call me. Let's have the conversation and see where we could go and how best I could help you. And that's the cry. Sometimes there is one of the realities is that people have very high expectations of you in political office. They expect that, expectations to the point that they expect you to be somehow predictable, or an expectation of predictability where you could be able to know what their needs are. But I want to encourage you wherever you are in Tobago. I want to encourage you and reach out to your area rep. Have the conversation. Have that conversation with your area rep to see, because there are a lot of challenges young people face that cannot be fixed by the area rep, but at least he must be able to point you up in a direction for your own success. Yeah, so the conversation continues. Yeah.
And what? You go ahead.
Well, Mr. Craig, it's time for us to wrap up, but I just want us to go beneath the surface. What are your plans for 2025? Like, what can we look forward to seeing from Mr. Sonny Craig in his capacity as Assemblyman or even Assistant Secretary in the Office of the Chief Secretary?
All right. As an Assemblyman, I still hold dearly the aims and objectives I had for my district when I came to office. And those areas that were not met as yet, I want to make a dent this year. We recently opened back the Boko Fish facility. There is a training school there that was built by the Japanese some years ago. The refurbishment is almost complete. So we could be able to have that training component where fishermen from around the island could come and be briefed in more modern methods of fishing. So that's not just a Boko benefit, but it will benefit the entire island. I want to see that up and running in 2025. I want to see the fishermen make use of that facility. In Mount Pleasant, I want to help the team to see if they could qualify, not just qualify, but win nationally this year. That's another thing I want to accomplish. I want to also have Tobago become more conscious of the environment and be a part of the team that is going to bring the island that kind of beauty and serenity that we want to see by just individuals being responsible, right? I want to see us win the 2 Tobago seats this year, East and West. I'm going to do my part in sharing that conversation. We know that would be a major breakthrough in the benefit of the people of Tobago. The people of Tobago have suffered for too long by being represented by persons who are not listening to the Tobago conversation, but listening to they're leaders in Trinidad. Yeah.
Right.
So I will.
And you said that there were some projects that you wanted to do that you didn't get to do. What were some of those key
All right.
projects? And
Right.
seeing that there were a number of things that you wanted to do that you were unable to do, or that you still want to do, or you want to try to do it in the last year, do you think that you would get the confidence of the persons within your district to be their representative again in the next 4 years?
I think I will be, because I work every day without being satisfied. I am not going to take myself to the point where I think I've done enough. I have not done enough. There's a lot more to be done, and it's my intention during this year to continue to pursue those things. One is, as I mentioned earlier, the goat racing, and in the both major villages in my district. In the two major villages, I want to be able to begin some kind of research and development of different breeds of goat in the district, as that is the animal pegged to the events, the goat. I want to see, oh yes, and I didn't mention this one. I want to see the goat race become financially viable, where it lessens its dependence on the THA, and it becomes a business. I want to see more events held during the year, which could add up to that kind of financial independence that we want to develop. Yeah?
Understood. But when we look at that Goat Race Festival, right, we are seeing that the advancement and the growth of the Buku Goat Racing Festival is far outweighing that of what is happening in Mount Pleasant, to the point where you see Buku going up and Mount Pleasant going down on a yearly basis. And Mount Pleasant requires a serious injection into its festival. I mean, we are in January.
Yeah.
Easter is a few short months away. What have you been doing to work with the community, to work with the Mount Pleasant Village Council to ensure that the resources that they need, preparation for the festival, marketing, and that engagement with community members to come out and be a part of helping to grow and establish that festival to the level that Buku is at, and to maybe even surpass it, and to continue to grow together, as opposed to Buku growing, Mount Pleasant deteriorating? What are you doing currently to work with the stakeholders to ensure that the both festivals can be on par?
I wouldn't subscribe to the view that it's declining.
Well, when we look at years gone by,
Yeah.
the kind of, I am from Mount Pleasant. I actually
Yeah.
live very close to the field.
Right,
Very
okay,
close to the
okay.
field. And the kind of crowd that we previously saw flocking to the
Yeah.
Mount Pleasant
Right.
on Monday, Easter Monday, we are not seeing that anymore. We're more seeing persons with the new creation of the Tuesday holiday in Tobago, that Easter Tuesday holiday, everyone is going to Buku. So when we look at the numbers, it
I
has
think,
deteriorated significantly.
Well, I think that, I have been more intimately into the festival since I took this chair. And since I've taken the chair, of course, the first year was post-COVID. And because it was post-COVID, we had, because it was post-COVID, it was kind of like now coming back out. That was 2022. Then we had 23 and 24, which to me were parallel. But being a resident in the community, I respect your analysis on that. When we came in 2023, the facility was run down, actually. We had to put out some expenditure to renovate the facility. Apparently the doors were left open, the place was vandalized a bit, and it took some major fixing thereabout. The toilet facilities, everything was basically a mess. So with that renovation of the facility, we were able to pull off 2023, right? The village council, who normally leads the charge, I am invited to their meetings from time to time, and as they are planning this goat race, I would be in the room, and we'll have to do that SWOT analysis. It might be a bit late, but it's better now than never. And to look at where we could make the day changes to lift the event to come on par with Buku Point, yeah? But it could be done, and it's a good product, and I think marketing might be the challenge.
Okay, well, Mr. Craig, I think we all can agree that this morning's conversation was an excellent one, very healthy, but unfortunately we are all out of time. So firstly, I want to thank you for agreeing to sit down in the Beneath the Surface chair this morning. The conversation really expanded our perspectives, and I really hope that the Tobagonians and all the viewers who were locked in this morning, they can agree with that. Shenell?
Excellent. I totally agree with you, Luke, and I look forward to continuing these discussions
Exactly.
tomorrow as well as next week. And so we have all the assemblymen that will be here sitting in the chair, as some call it the hot seat, and they will be answering all our questions as we go beneath the surface. So guys, we want to thank you so much for being a part of this morning's discussion. We want to thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments, and all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster right here on the island of Tobago. Guys, have a great day.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago. Let's go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new